Speaking on Virgin Media Sport last night, Brian Kerr and Niall Quinn gave their views about the FAI's role in Irish football over the last decade. Have a look.
Yeah, I think, but we shouldn't dismiss the fact that the FAI are an organisation in dire financial straits. We can see that obviously from the prize money for the League of Ireland, the row with the women's teams over the lack of compensation for their professionalism, even going to their own staff. They've had difficulties with their own staff with the non-reinstatement of wage reductions that came in recent years. Yet we've had the situation where substantial, massive amounts of compensation has been paid out to managers, to Trapattoni, Tardelli, and now Martin and Roy, because of the ill-judged timing of the renewal of their contracts. Martin's contract was only renewed in January of this year, and he got a substantial rise in his terms. Now he's gone, and they've had to pay him off. Meanwhile, there's no money in the game. The game is struggling for support, for money, for development money. And, you know, you can appoint people, but you can't cover up a lack of investment in the game, which is badly needed over a number of years. And there's been a lot of mistakes made in the funding of the stadium, I believe in the continuous desire to clear off the debt for the stadium, rather than put the money into development of the game and ensure that we've proper quality players for the future. You wouldn't have done that as a chairman of Sunderland.
Well, we had a couple of managers come through, but what we did when we signed a contract of a manager, and it was with Roy, it was with Steve Bruce, Ricky Sprague, and Martin came at the end of it. I'd left very shortly after Martin came. But what we put in place was, if we think you're no good in year one and we're sacking you, we're not giving you 3 years, we're going to give you a percentage. Year two, we'll give you another percentage. Year three, but even whenever that time came, we had reduced our risk on the contract. We'd mitigated the risk. Now, as it happened, Steve Bruce did great for a couple of years, and, you know, there was a time when we called him in and he had such and such left in his contract, but he only got X, he didn't get X plus Y. And so this just, I don't know, it feels, if that had have happened and if the FAI had done well out of this, then maybe it would have been reported differently, but it does appear that that wasn't the case. But these are things, as Brian says, that all add up and take from where the game should go. I've been quite public about it recently. I think if anything good comes of our senior team, if there's a re-emergence, that it must fall back down to the League of Ireland. But as long as the FAI are running the National League, I think we've got a problem, because I hear they're giving money to Bohemians for a stadium. What is Shelbourne going to say about that? Why aren't they giving money to Shelbourne for a stadium?
They're having to go in with Bohemians.
Well,
yeah, so interesting stuff there from the two lads. A reminder, of course, Virgin Media Sport is the new home of European football in Ireland, with more than 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games live this season. Virgin Media Sport is exclusive even to all Virgin Media TV customers, who can also download the TV Anywhere app and stream all the action whenever and wherever they like. Two lads you'd want to be involved in Irish football at some level. In particular, Niall Quinn. I think Irish people had not a full understanding of Niall Quinn standing in the game, because he was a pundit on Sky.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to be a pundit on Sky for the Premier League and to express your kind of, or to fully articulate your viewpoint, because the product is the thing that everybody's invested in, and you're part of the military industrial complex for football. Quinn's point about separating the league from the FAI, there was a time when the league couldn't run its own affairs, and so the FAI took it in, and now maybe is the time for it to spin itself back out again.
Yeah.
It feels like we're kind of reaching a point where, and I don't think the FAI wants to run the league. It doesn't feel that way.
Well, like when you hear the stuff about, the line that's oft quoted about being the problem child, it does show there's a troubled relationship there. And
that wasn't wrong though, right?
No, absolutely.
Here's the thing, he's getting slaughtered for that, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, the league couldn't run its own affairs. The clubs were going bust.
Yeah.
Shelbourne reached that massive pinnacle.
I actually have sympathy for him on that. He gets hammered for that, but you couldn't say the league has always been in a healthy state. Like, you have outfits that are really professional, like the Dundalks and Cork, and in the same division, you have clubs that aren't anywhere near that level. So it's a strange league than that it's a hard one to generalise about. You can't suddenly say, oh, the League of Ireland standard's really good, because you're talking maybe a couple of clubs is really good and a couple of others it isn't.
Yeah.
But it is, like, it's, everybody's saying this now, it will become increasingly important, because the old pathway is basically broken. But to get people to go to the games, which you will need to raise finances, needs serious investment, because the grounds, basically facilities need to be upgraded. Like, you take kids to a lot of games and try and take them to a toilet in some of the grounds. Like, it's just, it's Neanderthal stuff. Like, you need to kick on from that. Like, so, you know, ideally you would like a lot of compact 10,000 capacity stadia that are decent, you know, not state of the art, but just they're comfortable. It's like going to the RDS for rugby or going to Thomond or the sports grounds. Like, Rugby showed there was an appetite for professional sports there and did upgrade the grounds so that people would have a comfortable experience, and that has to be done. Yeah, now it's funny, like, Thomond has been, the finance around Thomond has been a bit of a millstone around Munster's neck for years. Now, the IRFU are loaded and could wipe that debt out if they wanted to, but actually it suits them to have that sitting there and paid off over a long period of time. So I wonder if a breakaway, like, with, you know, properly organised breakaway from the FAI league would work if you had somebody like Quinn heading it up and saying, okay, we do need, so that Inchicore project that came up that didn't come to fruition, where there was a stadium and a shopping centre all being built together. Like, if you had that and you had Dalymount, and Dalymount is shared between Bowes and Shelburne, and Dalymount gets redeveloped, then suddenly you've got enough grounds for there to be people playing matches in good stadiums in proximity, easy to get to on the public transport. One more stadium of 8,000 to 10,000 in Dublin, and away you go. That's enough. Like, just schedule the games for Fridays and Saturday nights in those places. Tala already exists. Yeah. Now, whether or not anybody else gets to share Tala with Rovers, it's unlikely, but it's not a million miles away from having just enough to be sustainable. You've already got Dundalk, obviously, with their finances, in Cork, and suddenly you've 6 teams, 7 teams. Yeah, the big or one of the problems is that there's very Dublin-centric. You know, you have 5 or 6 clubs in Dublin, then you have 2 in Louth, which are very close by, in Bray as well. So, you know, that's nearly half your league is based in a very small geographical area. The other thing is, and you see this as an issue with Dundalk and Cork, who have been the outstanding teams the last few years, they lose their best players season after season to England. Like, to even if you do make the league, improve the league dramatically, you know, when you do produce really quality players, you know, that pathway there's still a pathway there. It's not what it was, but the best players will always go, and it's very hard to keep them. So that's, whereas, you know, when people do bring up the rugby comparison, the best players want to stay in Ireland. Yeah. Like, it's very, very rare for a player to leave now. So. Well, they're kind of contractually obliged to stay here if they want to play at the very top level, whereas obviously if you want to play at the very top level, you have to go. So, notwithstanding that, I still think there's probably a product, if you've got a bunch of people who come along and see the Stephen Kenny template of good quality football, like, that product should be attractive enough to have 4,000 or 5,000 at games. Yeah. And that would be enough to go, okay, well, so if the recast Dalymount, and again, these are massive ifs, right? But if that is actually a stadium that is accessible and well designed and clean and run properly, which no reason why it shouldn't be, and if you've got 2 clubs playing there, surely you could be able to get 4,500 to 5,000 on a Friday night and a Saturday night, or a Friday night and a Sunday afternoon. You would hope so. A change in mindsets is the big challenge, because the amount of people who it just never occurs to them to go to a game, you know, and there'd be people that'd be going, they might be looking for something to do at the weekend, so it just doesn't. It's not part of the radar, you know. It's never been there, and you do find that a lot of the people who go to the games regularly, they have grown up with it, or you know, as part of their family tradition. Yeah. You don't. The league has always found it hard to attract, like, the floating voters, like, just drag people in, and to kick on, I think you have to. You know, like, it is. I know you have this sneery attitude about bar stoolers and stuff, but I always think those are the people you should be trying to attract, because they actually watch football. It might be on TV, or they might be going over a couple of times a year to England, but they're actually interested in the game. So rather than sneering at them, try and get them to go to a bloody game here. Yeah, the sneering thing, that's not going to improve people's perception of your league. No. And, like, the sneering works both ways. Like, you have people who are Premier League fans here who never watch the League of Ireland sneer about it. So, you know, it does kick both ways.